So you all have listened to the entire Your Wish is Your Command CD program and how anyone can make millions, the money-making secrets they don't want you to know about. Any questions, comments, or observations about anything in the CDs for clarification?
The 4 levels of learning, how do you know when you're hitting each of these steps? It's pretty clear once you hit the last step, but the second and third step, there wasn't a lot of detail. Like, when do you know you're like kind of going up that ladder, if you will?
Good question. The question was the 4 steps of learning any new information. How do you know when you're in each step as opposed to the last step? Everybody, before you learn anything, you're at step 1. You're unconsciously incompetent. That's when you don't know what you don't know. So when you start to learn anything, you're going to learn a foreign language, you're going to learn Chinese. So you're automatically at the starting point of learning anything, you don't know what you don't know. So you're unconsciously incompetent. When you start learning something and you become aware for the first time that you don't know it, when you become aware that, oh my gosh, I was doing it all wrong, or oh my gosh, I really didn't know all this information, or I thought I knew, but now I realize I didn't know. When you come to that cognition, which usually happens pretty instantaneously, you get to level 2. You're now consciously incompetent. So unconscious incompetence is not knowing that you don't know. Conscious incompetence is when it's really the first step in the teachability index. It's becoming teachable because you're consciously aware of your, quote, incompetence. And incompetence is a bad word. It's just you're consciously aware that you don't know. So when you consciously are aware that you don't know something, that's when the teachability index kicks in. You should become very teachable at that point. Now the third step, conscious competence, that's when you know how to do the thing or know the information, but you must consciously think about applying it to make it work. For example, you just learned how to bowl. But now you're thinking through, okay, I have to step 1, 2, 3. You're thinking through the entire process. So when you have to consciously activate your thoughts to apply what you've learned, when you have to consciously do it, you just got directions to a new location. And you know the directions, but you're thinking, wait a minute, it's the third exit. Okay, now I have to take, let's see, which way? It's the second left. You're consciously thinking through the process. You're in conscious competence. Unconscious competence is easy. And that's when you drive there and when you get home and you go, I don't even remember driving here because you just did it automatically. Or you just bowl, or you just tie your shoelace without doing any thinking. That answer the question? Good. Any other questions?
People that weren't in a society and didn't have mentors like a Bill Gates, maybe even a Steve Jobs, those kind of people, if they weren't brought up in societies, how did they get the sort of knowledge and mastery that led them to
achieve levels of success?
Yeah.
So if a person was not in a society and had direct access to this information and mentoring and learning from people, how did they achieve levels of success? And you mentioned Stephen Jobs and Bill Gates, with the assumption that they're not members of societies, which you can't assume.
Sure.
That's number one. You can't assume that. Actually, if you look at the Forbes 400 list, every single person in there is a member of one or more or multiple secret societies. And again, most of these people do not deny it, and they do not keep it a secret of their membership. That's really important. I mean, they are members of groups. And let me define what these societies are. A very common one is the YPO, Young Presidents Organization. These are groups that people get together and they share information amongst like-minded people who they believe are worthy, for a lot of different reasons, of learning this information. And societies, whether it's Skull and Bones at Yale University, again, a very well-known one, whether it's the Freemasons or whether it's some of the lesser-known ones, or whether it's groups that you may not even consider as being, quote, societies, which include several country club memberships and different memberships in various cities around the world, where they look like they're just a country club membership or just a business association membership. And in fact, when you get in, that's what it appears to be. And after a period of time, then it changes. All of a sudden you learn that this group is a little bit more than this. You come in and that's what it is, but then there's a little bit more. And that's, for example, what Bill Gates and Steve Jobs got exposed to later on. So what happens is, in these groups, what the benefits are, and there are multiple, but the two major benefits is, number one, you're gaining information and knowledge so that you don't have to figure it out on your own or guess or wonder if it works. So you're being told, look, this is the way it works. And when you're told from somebody that you respect and admire and who has the evidence of it working, telling you directly, look, trust me, this is how it works. This is what we all do. This is how it works. Your level of acceptance and belief goes up dramatically, and you can start applying it. So first thing is getting knowledge and information and having access to people that can help fine-tune you and make sure you keep on track. So it's getting information. The second big advantage of these groups is the associations. When you are a member, Harvard University, the professors at Harvard University and the people that go to Harvard University, I've talked to them, I say, what is the advantage of a Harvard University education? Are you really learning more? Are you really getting a better education? Are you really getting more information that's going to help you get a better job and make more money and so forth? What's the huge advantage of getting a Harvard University education? And the answer is, it's the people you meet. It's not the education you get from the professors. It's the fact that your bunkmate's Al Gore, or I mean, it's like, oh yeah, I'm hanging out with these guys whose parents are the titans of industry, and so these are my friends. So when I leave, I pick up the phone, I call my friend whose dad owns blah 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 blah, and you want to make a deal, and guess what happens? The deal gets done in seconds. Think about the average guy trying to make a deal. Okay, yeah, I mean, we're negotiating now with different things, right? So you're on the phone, okay, and you have to go through this middle manager and that middle manager, and you can convince them that you're a good guy and your deal is good, and you have to set up a meeting and then give a PowerPoint presentation and do this and do that, and you're trying to make a deal with a company or do some business with somebody else, and it takes sometimes forever, and they have to go through committees, and everybody's nervous. Well, guess what happens in the real world at the highest levels? Joe picks up the phone and calls his friend Sam, who he went to school with, or is a member of the country club or a member of the YPO, and you follow me there. And because they are in the same group, they can pick up a phone and they get the call. Even if they don't know the guy, they can pick up the phone and they get through on the first call. And the person will listen to what the offer is and bypass all the BS, and then the deals just get done. Because it's like, oh, okay, well, you're in, and you think it's a good deal? Sure, I'll do it for you. And why? Because someday that guy may need to call him. And so you've heard, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. That's what this is all about. And you always hear this. It's not what you know, it's who you know. So the benefits in the association levels, the people that you meet, go way, way beyond. But in the answer specifically to your question, I talked about this a little bit on the CDs, is people sometimes succeed by accident. They may not know what they're doing. But these principles, whether you know about these principles or not, are irrelevant. They still work. Whether you are taught these principles or not, they still work. If you're going to learn how to golf, and you don't go to Tiger Woods' coach, but you just pick up a golf club, and you go to the golf range, and after a couple of years, all of a sudden you're a scratch golfer. Somebody says, the guy never got a lesson in his life. How come he's such a great golfer? The answer is he just kind of figured it out by trial and error, right? Oh, wait, if I do this, and he just figured it out. So in real life, people in business sometimes are doing things unconsciously, and they don't know that specifically they're doing it. But it's the thing that we're teaching on the CDs that is causing the success. A lot of people who succeed who weren't taught to apply this particular principle and they're succeeding, guess what? They're applying the principle. But if you ask them, what specifically are you doing to guarantee that it's creating your success? They don't even know. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know that they're actually thinking about what they want, beaming out that vibration. They don't know that that's what they're doing, but when you ask them, that's what they do. That's what they do. When you ask a guy who doesn't know this and say, have you ever heard of the law of attraction? No. And he's being honest, no idea. But he's very successful. I go, well, how did you build your business? Well, I had a dream when I was a kid of this business. And all I could do, it was like an obsession. And I just knew that no matter what, I was going to make this happen. Doesn't that sound like exactly what we've been teaching? So they don't know they don't know that works, which is why people who succeed many times fail dramatically. Do you know how people like build up, and all of a sudden then they reach kind of a point and then everything just kind of falls apart? And you ever wonder why that happens so often? Especially people who don't know the technique. The reason is when they have nothing, they're focusing on what they want, right? And they're focusing on the dream. So they're vibrating, they're sending out the vibration of what they want. Earl Nightingale, you become what you think about most of the time. So they're thinking about what they want. They have belief. They have the right feeling. They're excited about it. They're anticipating it. They're expecting it. They have belief that they're going to get it, and it starts coming into their experience. Then all of a sudden they have the big house, the 4 cars, and all the money. And now, guess what they start doing? They start changing what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about expanding their business or expanding their income. They're thinking about protecting what they have, because they're afraid of losing it. So guess what now they're vibrating? Fear. They're actually vibrating losing it. They start thinking about losing it. I don't want to lose 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 it. Guess what the vibration is? Lose it. I don't want it to fall apart. I don't want it to fall apart. Guess what happens? It falls apart because that's what they're focusing on. So that's why you see people go through different stages. And that's why if they don't know this technique that they're applying, that'll happen automatically. If they do know this technique, then they don't have the drop-off. So when you see people go up and crash, many times they just were never taught the specificity of the technique. That's why groups never have the drop-off. If you see a group or a family never have the drop-off, then you know they know what's happening. Did that answer your question? Good question. Yes.
Along those lines, on the CDs you tell a story about a guy who's due a chunk of money and it's going through the legal process, and he doesn't think he's going to get the money for 12 months. And initially he's going, I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. I need the money now. I've got all these bills to pay. And then he comes to the realization of, I'm going to go on vacation because I know everything's going to work out. At what point does that sort of positive vibration override the negative that he had at the beginning of the story? Because that negative is still out there, right?
Good question. The question is, when somebody's putting out a negative vibration for a while and then wants to change it, does the negative vibration still hang out there? If you're dialed in to 97.4 for a year and you just want to change it to 105.7, the second you change it, you get a different result. The moment you change the vibration, the result is instantaneously different. So if you have a negative thought for a long, long time, and you're learning this stuff for the first time, and you change that vibration, wait a minute, why am I thinking this? I mean, I'm obviously vibrating what I don't want, fear and so forth, and that's what I'm getting. This moment in time, that's why we call this the 10-second miracle. It's a miracle that happens in virtually a second. We call it the 10-second, the 5-second, whatever. It's a nanosecond miracle. So the moment you change that vibration, then everything instantaneously starts changing. Now, the manifestation may take hours, days, weeks, or months, but that's irrelevant. The moment you change the vibration, instantaneously everything just starts reversing. It's like in the cartoon, the spear is coming right at you. But the moment you change it, it just stops, turns around, and goes the other way. Instantaneous. There's not a slowdown period. It just stops that fast. And that's why people see miracles even in physiological health. My tumor's growing, and then all of a sudden they use this to change the vibration, and then in 24 hours, that tumor the size of a grapefruit is gone. And medical science can never explain that. They just say they use the word miracle. There's no scientific medical explanation of how this grapefruit-sized tumor is gone. And we know there are documented thousands upon thousands of worldwide documented cases of real people who have real, not made up, not fantasy symptoms. Real, here's the x-ray, here's the freaking tumor. Okay, it's there, and 24 hours later, it's gone. It ain't there anymore. And the person is absolutely, that is documented infinitum, and nobody wants to discuss it at length, but even on the Discovery channels and so forth, it's there. And nobody can explain how that happens. There's no scientific way of biologically explaining it. So if you have a lot of negative vibration out there, and you're learning this for the first time, and you're going to change that today, everything has changed the moment you change the thought process. And the most important thing that changed is how you feel. Imagine the circumstances are exactly the same. The guy's screwed. He doesn't have any money. He can't pay his bills. He has no idea how it's going to come in. The circumstances had not changed at all for that guy. But what changed was his thinking, and virtually in an instant, he went from feeling stressed, challenged, miserable, and so forth, to feeling just blissfully happy, and he had no reason to. Because if you looked at the circumstances, there was no reason to be stupidly happy. But he wasn't looking at the circumstances. He wasn't looking at what he could see on the radar screen. He realized that what was off the radar screen, what was outside of his view, was absolutely fine. As if the radar screen expanded and he saw the cavalry coming. Oh, it's coming. Okay. See, again, that's how you have to imagine. If he got a phone call and said, we're going to send you $1 million check today, we just settled the case, he would feel good, right? Well, obviously, because he has a physical manifestation. This is even a spiritual, biblical principle, where it says, bless those who have not seen. Remember, for those of you who are Christians or read the biblical text, there's an example in the New Testament where I think Thomas goes up to Jesus and says, I want to put my fingers in the marks in your hands and feet to see it, and put my hand in your side where you were stung by the spear to see if you're real. And he saw him, and he goes, now I believe. And he goes, well, yeah, you believe because you saw it. Bless those who didn't see and still believe. And that's a principle of, if you know you're getting the check, you're going to be happy. But when there's no evidence of it coming in, none at all. As a matter of fact, nothing but contra-evidence, contradictory evidence, and you're still stupidly happy, that's when the magic occurs. That's when the magic occurs. And again, from a biblical standpoint, it doesn't make a difference what religion you are or if you're an atheist, but I'm just using this as an example. But from a biblical standpoint, it is the definition of, quote, faith. It says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So someone says, you have no money. That's right. How come you're happy? Well, everything will be fine. Give me the evidence that money's going to come in to be able to pay your bills. I can't give you the evidence. That's faith. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. I just know everything will be fine. And if I have any evidence, it's 55 years of experience knowing that everything always is fine.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What happens when a group of people have contrasting vibrations? Let's say we're in a plane and my vibration is that we fly, and the guy next to me's vibration is that we crash.
That's right. It's like the guy says, what if it's the pilot's time to go?
Right, yeah, I say that from time to time because I always wonder, who wins?
It's a very interesting question, and the answer is, if you get into a car crash You and the person that were both in the car crash both had the same vibration to cause the car crash. So I can categorically tell you that the thousands of minor little situations that caused the person to buy a ticket on that plane and make it on time or not make it on time, everybody on there was vibrating the same, attracting the same result. And sometimes it's hard to believe. I'm not going to expand on it here, but that's something that, there was a movie that came out with Brad Pitt called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And it's an interesting movie to watch. But there's one particular scene in there with this woman gets hit by a car and her leg gets crushed. And the narrator says, there was a woman in her apartment who was leaving her apartment. But as she left, the phone rang. So she stopped and went back in to answer the phone. There was a cab driver who decided unexpectedly to stop for a cup of coffee. And then he'd get in this cab and he started driving. But a car pulled out and ran out of gas right in front of him, causing it to be delayed. The woman's phone call went longer than expected, and she was running late to get to the bakery. And it went over through these whole series of events where the woman gets in the cab drives down the road and hits this woman and crushes her legs. And the example was, if any one of these dozens of things happened just 1 second differently, if the phone didn't ring, if the cab driver didn't get a cup of coffee, if that car didn't pull out in front of the cab and run out of gas, if blah, 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 blah. If anything was different, anything at all, then that cab wouldn't have been there at that moment in time to crush that woman's legs. And the answer is, when you think about that, that's why when you throw out a vibration, the whole universe is conspiring and creating virtually tens of thousands of events which work perfectly with each individual's vibration too, to create that situation in your experience. So if you're on that plane and that plane crashed, believe me, there was some vibration in every single person on that plane that was creating that event. And sometimes it's hard to believe. It's like, I'm driving down the road and I'm feeling happy and all of a sudden, boom, a guy crashes right into me. Someone says, I wasn't thinking about a car crash. I wasn't vibrating, I want a car crash. I want to crash my car. I want to crash. I wasn't doing that. How did that occur? And the answer is this. The answer is you absolutely were not vibrating the car crash. And that's why on the CDs I talk more about the importance of your vibration is feeling, not necessarily the thing itself, because we're all not that smart. We may not know the best house for us, the best car, the best job. We may not know specifically what is the best thing to happen for us, but what we know is how we want to feel. So what occurs is, when a guy gets in a car crash, he wasn't vibrating car crash. The question is, when you got into that car crash, how'd you feel? I felt incredibly frustrated. Somebody else, I felt incredibly scared. Somebody else, I felt so overwhelmed because now I don't have enough time to do everything as it is, and now with this car crash, I'm going to have less time. Whatever feeling that car crash gave that person, then I asked that person, over the last few weeks, what else have you been thinking about which gave you a similar feeling? And then all of a sudden, eyes get as wide as saucers, and people go, oh, yeah, I've been really, my aunt has been in the hospital with cancer, and I've really been scared myself. I've been really fearful of death, fearful of death, fearful of death, fearful of death, fearful of death. Car crash, how did you feel? It made me fear of getting killed. Do you understand that? It wasn't the car crash that they were vibrating. It was a feeling that they were vibrating, and the universe starts bringing into your experience people, events, and situations which will give you similar feelings. That's what keeps coming in. The events that gives you similar feelings. That's why when you're grateful and you're happy and you're going, thank you, thank you, thank you, everything, man, I just feel so good. I just feel so lucky. I feel so lucky. Ding dong, hello. You just won the lottery. Oh, I can't believe how lucky I feel. All of a sudden, situations and events start popping into your life where you continue to feel what? Lucky. If you feel grateful, then situations and events start popping in where you continue to feel more grateful. And that's a really good place to be. It's a really high vibration because there's nothing bad that could come into your life that would make you feel grateful, right? Those are like really good things. Yes.
My wife got reminded kind of on this topic a month ago, and she said how weird it was. She goes, about 5 seconds before she was stopped at a light, she goes, I felt I was going to get into an accident. I look in the rearview mirror, I see the guy stop behind me, and I'll see I go peer up again, and I'll see wham, the guy behind him at 40 miles an hour hit and did that. So, I mean, that was kind of one of the things I was going to talk about was that feeling. I mean, how do you change your feelings? I stubbed my toe. Is the positive like, oh, I'm glad I didn't chop it off? I mean, how do you change your feelings to be
When something bad happens?
Yeah, or just along the lines, if I had no money and I was losing a house or this, how do I know my thoughts were negative compared to being...
You don't have to worry about them. The question is, if something bad happens or something negative happens, how am I controlling my thoughts and really what I'm doing? The answer is everything that happens in your life there's really not good or bad situations. There's really not positive or negatives. They're just events. They're just circumstances. They're just experiences. There's really nothing good or bad. And if we look at it that way, there's nothing really good or bad. All they are is an indicator of what you're vibrating. Everything that's happening in your life is just nothing but an indicator of what you're vibrating. So if you don't particularly like what's happening in your life, that's just an indicator that your vibration needs to be changed. If you really like the circumstance in your experience, that just tells you that the vibrations are something that you want to continue. It's nothing more than indicators of what you're vibrating. So if you experience something like stubbing your toe, and you think, how did I do, why, ow, why did I stub my toe? You don't have to, get so crazy about every single thought, because that's just an indicator that you're emanating how do you feel? I feel annoyed. I feel clumsy. I feel whatever the feeling is. And all that is telling you, and keep in mind, they usually start small. So the indicators are good. They're like, thank you, tell me. It's like I'm driving down the road and I see a little red light and it goes, oh, my gas gauge, I need to get some petrol. That's a good indicator. It doesn't annoy me. It's just a little light. It just tells me, hey, get some gas, get some petrol, or you run out. The next indicator will be the car stops. Now you follow me? They get worse as we go along. So if you stub your toe, minor indicator, but it does tell you. It just is a little like, hey, you're vibrating something. What's the feeling you got? Fine. Thank you for telling me. Follow me? Thank you. Is that a good thing? Yeah, because it's somebody telling you, hey, smack, wake up. Thank you for telling me before I get into a real problem. Like driving down the road and you start to doze off, and the person next to you gives you a whack in the ribs. Hey, wake up. Thank you for telling me, otherwise we would have crashed and died. So there's an indicator there. So the next indicator would have been crash, right? So you should be, that's why you're thankful for the situations that come in. That's the first reason you should always be thankful, that they're indicators so you can change your vibration. The second one is if you are aware that everything's going to be perfect, then whatever circumstance happens right now, you don't and can't comprehend the rational reason why that is a good scenario. Later on, you'll look back and go, oh, that was the best thing that ever happened. Because if that didn't happen, that's why, the story about the guy's, the Chinese guy's son who falls off the horse and breaks his leg. And everybody in the town says, we're so sorry for your son falling off the horse and breaking a leg. That's terrible. And the father said, maybe, maybe not. 2 days later, the army comes in and takes all the young men away to fight in a war, but they couldn't take his son because he had a broken leg. So why did the guy break his leg? If somebody always says, I want a better job, 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 I want a better job. They go, this doesn't work, I just got fired. Well, you can't have a better job while you're working. You asking for, you tell them, like you were saying how much you hate the job, you just got fired, you got what you asked for, the better job is coming. So you can't get all flustered about it. Hope that answered the question. Any other question? Yes.
Yes. When you were talking about sending vibrations and you send a different vibration to a grape or a brick or a glass of red wine, say, than I do, and it's scientifically proven,
Yes.
how can it not then be scientifically proven that the guy willed away and sent a good vibration to his tumor?
The question is, if we look at the vibration of this desk or the vibration of this cup or the vibration of this pencil, they're all made up of exactly the same things, as we know. They're all made up of atoms. And at the end of the day, they're all made up of electrons. So they're absolutely the same. The only difference is the combination of that. And the reason that the combinations cause it to be different is because the combinations cause the vibration to be different. And therefore, when the vibration is different, the end result of what you see, pencil, cup, desk, are different. That can be measured now with instruments. Instruments now, before electron microscopes, you couldn't see that far down. Now you can see beyond an atom, you can see an electron. And now with further instruments, which a lot of this stuff has not yet been published, but if you take an electron and actually amplify it even further, you see that it's virtually air. That electron is nothing more than a vibration. If you kind of just imagine this electron and then blowing it up and getting it bigger and bigger with a microscope, all of a sudden you see there's nothing there. It's just vibrating at a certain point, and that's how radio beams can go through things, because there's nothing there to go through. So a tumor is there, and now a tumor is gone. No scientist has physically watched the tumor go away. So that's the answer. It's like, why can't they figure it out? Unfortunately, at this moment in time, they don't have somebody being x-rayed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The person's going to die from the x-rays. So they can see the tumor today, or 24 hours later, or a week later, or a month later, they look again and the tumor's gone. How it was and how it went, they don't know. It's like Houdini doing a magic trick. How did he escape? We couldn't see him do it. If you were there watching him escape from the handcuffs, you'd see what he was doing. So if they were watching the tumor shrink, then they could see it actually, the manifestation in real time. But at this point, there isn't any documented evidence of watching the manifestation occur. Like if you see a seed, right? You put a seed in the ground. For years, you put seeds in the ground and all of a sudden something pops up. How did that happen? And then science said, well, let's take the seed out and let's see if we can duplicate this thing so we can actually see what's occurring. Well, the problem is you can't see what's occurring inside. Now let's look at, let's see if we can see what's happening inside the seed. So that's how you start, oh, wow. I guess we can see the germination. And today, scientists still can't understand how if you take a seed and put it in a little amount of soil, right? Small little cup of soil, and you measure the exact amount of water you're putting into that soil. 6 months later, you take out the plant, virtually the same amount of soil is still there that when you started. But you have this plant that weighs 2 pounds. You didn't put that much water in. So science can't explain how did this stuff, where did it come from? The answer, it was coming from the energy in the universe. It was virtually manifesting out of nothing. And so that's what this whole concept is about. When you're throwing out a certain vibration, things can be manifest virtually out of, quote, nothing. Nothing is something. It's the energy that's all around us. But did that answer your question about the tumor?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to wrap your head around.
The bottom line is there is a tumor and there isn't. That is factual and documented. But no one's ever watched the tumor go away. Did it happen in a nanosecond? Did it happen over a few seconds? Did it happen over a few minutes? That still has not been documented or seen.
Because there's no funding for it, you think? Or there's no medical way to not kill the guy with x-rays?
As of right now, the only way you can see the tumor is with an x-ray. So you take an x-ray like that. You can't be bombarding the guy every couple seconds. because you kill them with the X-rays. Any other questions?
Going back to neural pathways.
Yeah.
What you were saying before seems to be sort of a throw to what the bleep do we know and repetitive nature to bring on events that make you have the feelings that you want to have. How do you know, I shouldn't say how do you know, there are people who try to do these things that we talk about and try to change their vibration, try to change what they're thinking about, but subconsciously they're still deeply
They fail,
vibrating.
yeah.
They fail. So there are some people, I think, who do this more naturally than others and more easily than others. How do the people who have the biggest trouble with that subconscious doubt overcome that and to apply these techniques?
Good question. The question is, if some people can do this easier than others, some people have a lot more luggage. Right. Some people have a lot more baggage, a lot more subconscious negative garbage. Let me explain what this is. Some people have this huge, enormous ball of black energy because they've been vibrating negatively for a long time. Like attracts like. It's the law of attraction. So if you think a negative thought, guess what's going to be attracted? Another one and another one. That's why gripe sessions. Do you ever notice? You ever go to a group of people? Everyone's, hey, let's have a drink. Let's have a. Now let's. The Giants, man. You say something negative, then somebody else picks up on it, and they go, yeah, you're right, and they start saying something negative. But then the other guy says, yeah, you're right, and all of a sudden, at the end of 10 minutes, everyone is talking and they're believing all the negativity. So, like negative thoughts attract more like negative thoughts. And the more negative thoughts that you're attracting, that you're thinking about, then it gets to a point where it starts developing into negative experiences in your life. Positive thoughts give you more thoughts are attracted, and when more positive thoughts are attracted, positive experiences happen in your life. That's why when you're thinking about buying a car, you're thinking about buying a new car. I'm thinking about buying this new car. All of a sudden you're driving down the road, you start seeing them everywhere. Did you ever notice that? They just kind of popping up because you're vibrating that, so that's what's coming into your experience. So some people have this, that's what people ask me, did you have an advantage? And the answer is, yeah, I learned this stuff when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old. So I didn't have a lot of baggage. So I had early on nothing but positive experiences to keep going back to, as opposed to negative experiences which would create doubt. So some people have this big ball of negative energy that they're kind of floating around with. And they start applying this, and their positive thought is about, itty bitty tiny small. So the big huge ball of negative black energy has this huge magnetic attraction, right? Because it's attracting more negative thoughts. So they think one positive thought, and it has this itty bitty small positive attraction. So they keep getting pulled back to the negative thoughts because this is really, really big. That's why some people are like, they start off negative 100. They're not even at point zero yet. They're negative 100. They're consciously competent. So they have to continue to do this consciously over and over and over and over again until it's like a person's going to go to the gym for the first time. He's 150 pounds overweight. Well, he's going to be there for a year before he can do a lot of the exercises that somebody else who just started with 10 pounds overweight can do, right? So he has a lot longer to go. Same thing here. The person who has all this negative energy, all this subconscious thoughts that's basically bringing them back and pulling them away from this, he's going to have a harder time. The solution to that, there are several solutions. The first solution is, as I talk about on the tapes very specifically, is when you're using these techniques, only use the techniques initially on something you can believe in. Because what most people do, and the reason they can never succeed, is they have all this luggage and all this baggage, and they think that they want something. Even if it's what appears to be something small, they still have doubt that they can get it because of all this black negative energy, and therefore it'll never come in. But if they can use it on something simple, such as, I'm going to go to the store today, and I bet you I'll get a pretty good parking space. I think I'll get a pretty good parking space. Now somebody else may say, I'm going to get a space right up front. But the guy with the big black negative energy, if he says, I'm going to get a space right up front, he immediately doubts it. because of all the black negative energy, which means it's not going to happen, and therefore he has another reason to believe it doesn't work. So he has to come up with something that he can believe in first. So he has to go a little bit slower. The idea is you're starting to get your positive ball of energy bigger and bigger and bigger. The more you focus on the positive ball of energy, the negative begins to shrink. So you have two things occurring simultaneously when you're doing this at the conscious competence level. Your positive ball of energy is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why driving in the car, listening to these CDs, reading books every single day keeps you focusing on the positive ball of energy. So every time you're focusing on the positive, the black one starts to shrink a little, and the positive starts to grow. And the tipping point is when the positive ball of energy is for the first time bigger than the negative ball of energy. That's the tipping point. That tipping point is different for every single person. Some people it's going to take a lot longer. So that's the first thing. Start off small. The second thing is the Callahan techniques that we talk about on the CDs where you tap. That actually blows out huge amounts of negative energy. And that's really, really effective at clearing the body, if you will, of these negative blockages. And that's really, really helpful. When a person feels really bad, they're kind of keyed into all this negativity. So at that moment, if they use the Callahan technique, it'll blow out huge amounts. And that's a pretty fast way of doing it. And there's some other techniques as well that we'll be talking about in the future that also helps clear out that subconscious negativity.
Right. And a follow-up is the events in your life are still an indicator. So even if you necessarily think that you're doing these things, you need to pay conscious attention to the indicators and whether or not it's really working. So the follow-up question is there a such thing as an accident?
Well, first off, it is always working. What does that mean? It means whatever happens in your life is caused by whatever you're vibrating. So you can't stop that. You can't stop yourself from vibrating energy.
But what I mean is people need to assess what's happening in their lives as an indicator of whether or not these techniques are working or not.
No, the technique, back up, is based on focusing what is naturally occurring, or taking what naturally occurs and now using it. So what is occurring with you and everybody here and everybody listening to this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is we are vibrating. And that vibration is based on our either subconscious, conscious thoughts. And whatever we are vibrating, whatever feeling we are vibrating, we are attracting that exact thing into our existence. So as you say, there is no such thing as an accident because we are vibrating, creating everything. And some of these things that we're creating are in a flow, in emotion. There's not like an end result here. It's a constant movement because everything is constantly moving. So we're vibrating 24/7. We're creating our experiences 24/7. What I'm suggesting here is, since that is the case, since you vibrate and you create, automatically, whether you want to or not, you can choose to then focus on something specifically, whether it's a good feeling or a desire, and have it come in. You can choose that. Because everything that's coming in, you're creating anyway. That's why the key element here is taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Because you are creating every single thing. Nobody else is. You are. My friend who wrote a very great book talked about that the number one disease of the mind, or the disease of people, is mysticism. And he defined it as a person looking outward for a cause in their life. Whether it's God, the devil, the politicians, my boss, the economy, the weather, my parents, the school I went to, the school I didn't go to. There's all these circumstances that they blame for them. And he said that's the thing that has been going on throughout infinitum, which causes people to be not at cause over their environment, but rather at effect. So they're just being like a ship without a rudder being blown around. as opposed to the guy saying, no, I have a ship, I have an engine, I have a sail, I can basically go anywhere I want, no matter what the circumstances, and he just takes control. So these techniques always work 100% of the time. If somebody says, no, I wanted a new car, I've been using this technique and I didn't get it, I guarantee you, what he was doing when he was focusing on the new car was he was focusing on the fact that he doubted he would get the car, or that he was afraid he wasn't going to get the car, or, you follow me? In other words, you cannot, it's a physical law of the universe, the law of attraction. So when somebody says, I've been focusing on this and it hasn't come into my life yet, I can guarantee when I sit down with the person and just look at their face, the way they're feeling when they think about it, it's doubt, which means they're thinking about not getting it. They're focusing on it not happening, or the fear of it not coming in, as opposed to the exhilaration and exuberance feeling they should have knowing that it comes in. And you can just see that when I see this my whole life. Somebody says, I wanted to get this new such and such, and it just hasn't come in yet. I goes, well, think about what you want. Okay, how do you? And I just look at his face, depression. Okay, he's thinking about the new car, and he's first thing, and you see, he gets all depressed. And the reason is when he thinks about the Cadillac, he absolutely doesn't believe he can get it. Categorically doesn't believe it's going to come in, and he's depressed. Well, guess what? He's not doing the technique. What he's doing is he's believing and thinking about it not happening. Thus, he's creating that. So this always 100% works. It doesn't like, oh, I tried it and it didn't work. Whatever you're vibrating is coming into your experience, 100%. It's the hardest thing for people to grasp, that they create their entire experience with their own thoughts. But it's the one thing when you can believe it and think about it and use it, that's when everything magically changes. Good question.
Good answer.
Thank you. Yep.
So is there a machine out there that could detect and hook me up to, so you can see my negative ball versus my positive ball?
There isn't a machine, but there's something that you have that can detect your negative ball versus your positive ball, and it's how you feel. And that's why the first thing I said on the CDs is when you're using these techniques, there's one senior wish, desire, or goal you should always have that's senior to everything else, which is why when you think about everything you want, it all rolls down to this anyway. This is where the rubber meets the road. And that is your desire should always be first and foremost above everything else, feel good right now.
But what about the people who feel good in their negativity? There are people who think that they feel good, but they're being negative, and maybe they don't have an indicator of what feeling good really feels like.
Oh, that's a very good question. I was actually with a guy in Palm Beach in his $30 million house, and I was with two of my friends, and one of my buddies, one's an older guy in his 80s, the other guy's in his 60s, and the older guy, whose house we were in, went to have a cup of coffee or something, and I'm chatting with my friend. He goes, didn't mention his name. He goes, he's the most miserable son of a gun in the world. I goes, no, he's the most negative guy. He's smiling all the time. He loves being a jerk. He loves acting like he's negative about everything. And he looked, and he goes, I've known him 50 years. You're exactly right. He just loves it. I go, so yeah, he's feeling good. It's an act. It's really an act. You can't read his mind, and you can't read how he feels, right? But he does. But when he's blabbering and bitching and screaming and complaining about the maids and complaining about the cook and complaining about the chauffeur and complaining about this, he's got a smile on his face. So he's actually feeling, remember, the words don't matter. The words are irrelevant. It's the feeling associated with it. So he's appearing to be negative to you and I. Believe me, you don't know what thoughts he has or what vibration he's picking out. And we don't know how he really feels, but we can look at the indicator of how he feels, and it looks like he feels pretty good.
You say feel good now. Sometimes people do things they shouldn't do to feel good right now. They go have something to eat they shouldn't eat, or they go buy something they shouldn't buy, or they overextend themselves to buy the Cadillac thinking, I'll just go get it, and now they've got negativity from that. How do they know the difference? How do you know the difference from, the Cadillac's going to come to me versus, well, I can just go buy it and skip some tuition payments for my kids, or
Yes.
whatever it is.
And some people do things, they take drugs or drink, and they do things too to feel better. Actually, what they're doing is they're not feeling better. And this is a really, 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 really good question. If you think of anything you've done negatively in your life, and we all have, whether it's drink to excess because you want to feel good. Usually you're drinking to excess when you're feeling bad, right? So you want to feel good, so let me open up a bottle of scotch and drink it. Let me eat that, 2 pounds of macaroni and cheese and pot roast with gravy and mashed potatoes and sit in front of the TV and, or have that, 2 pints of ice cream. Oh, this is going to make me feel good. Usually we do these things when we are feeling bad. And what we're really doing is we're trying to feel good, but the method we're using is we're trying to mask the pain. So the theory is if I mask the pain, I'll feel better. You're not feeling good, you follow me? You're just eliminating the pain. And so your goal is not to eliminate pain. Because if your goal is to, think about this for a second. If your goal is to, I want to eliminate my pain, I want to eliminate my pain, I want to eliminate my pain, I want to get rid of my pain, I want my pain to go away, what are you doing?
Think about pain.
You're thinking about pain. You're focusing on what you don't want. And whatever you focus on, you get more of. Remember, whatever you really, 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 really want, you get. And whatever you really, 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 really don't want, you get that too. So the key is shifting that, and you'll know, now that you know this technique, I don't want to eliminate my pain, I want to feel good. And I guarantee categorically, if you are focused on feeling good instead of eliminating pain, you won't open up a bottle of scotch and drink the whole bottle. You may have a glass, because there's nothing wrong with that. You may have a cigar. You may go have some macaroni and cheese, but you'll enjoy every moment of it. And you'll feel good about it. You'll think, this is fine. You're not going to feel bad 10 minutes later, because the reason you feel bad 10 minutes later is all you did was do something to mask the current pain, and when you stop doing that, the pain is still there. That make sense? So if you focus on feeling better, what can I do to feel just a little bit better? And no matter what emotion you're at, all you're trying to do is feel a little bit better. So if you think about this emotional scale, okay, bliss is at the top. Depression, suicide is at the bottom. Okay, if you're depressed, right, and you get a bottle of scotch in front of you and a gun, you can't say, I want to feel bliss. That's way too big of a jump. What you want to do is say, I don't want to be you don't want to be depressed anymore. So what you're saying is, how can I feel a little bit better than this? And guess what better could be? Getting really angry. Angry is actually a better feeling than depressed. Think about it. If you start going, F this, I'm sick of this, and you start getting really angry, that's a better feeling than depressed with a gun to your head. Does that make sense? So all you want to do is just get a little better feeling. Because when you get there, remember the old saying, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see further. So in an emotional scale, when you're at a certain point, you can only get a little bit better. And as you go up, your jumps can be a little bit bigger. But in the beginning, you got to really go baby steps. So you just want to feel a little bit better. So in answer to your question, feeling good now is categorically the most important thing, but it's not eliminating the pain. And the examples you gave, the guy who just goes, buys a car, whacks up his credit cards, guarantee, he's not trying to feel good. He's trying to do something to mask the pain. So his focus is on pain. So the key is not masking the pain, but the key is focusing on what you want and not what you don't want. Did that answer your question?
I really want to help somebody, excuse me, who needs help. but it's not working because that person's negative ball is through the roof, drinking, drugs, whatever it is. It just gets to a point where it's like, I've done everything I can. That person's just on their own.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the best thing you can do, because this question comes up a lot, what can I do to help somebody? I have a friend who's got cancer. I got a friend who's drinking. A guy who's depressed. A buddy of mine. What can I do to help him? 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 And the answer is you work on yourself first. This is the hardest thing for most people to grasp. But if you want to help your best friend, be super happy yourself. Work on you, because your vibration is going to affect them. Remember, Einstein and Edison said, whatever you vibrate from your brain is picked up by other brains. So if you want to help them, all you have to do is work on yourself and raise your vibration. That is going to have an impact on this person. And let me tell you the type of impact. That vibration may be so positive and so high, it may repel the other person because their vibration may be so low, they may hate being around you. Because they just can't take it, because it's and that's helping them, because they're going to attract in their life what they're vibrating. And if you're around them, you can affect their brain. But that's the best way to help anybody, is just to work on yourself first. And what will happen is, believe me, friends will start vanishing, new friends will start coming in. For years we've known statistically that your income is always the average of your 5 best friends. And when you want your income to go up, generally speaking, your friends change. I mean, that's generally what occurs, because all of a sudden you're at a different vibrational level. You're not attracting those people anymore in your life. You're not enjoying their company anymore because you're vibrating differently. So you start attracting different people, circumstances, events, scenarios, and tangible things.
So then the reverse question comes up. By being around a whole bunch of people with a lot of negative energy, can that bring you down?
Good question. If you're around a lot of people with negative energy, can that affect you? Energy always affects others. However, the good news is this. The positive vibration is higher than a lower negative vibration. So in terms of power and intensity, voltage, ampage, whatever you want to say, one positive thought is much more powerful than around 10,000 negative thoughts. So if I'm a positive person and I walk in a room with 20 negative knuckleheads, guess what? They don't have a chance, because my energy will affect them infinitely more than they will affect mine. Now, there's a good chance when you start changing your vibration and raising it, and you're in an environment, and this was in the movie The Secret. The guy started raising all of a sudden he got transferred to a different department. 3 people quit, 2 people... Like within days, all of a sudden his whole scenario changed, and he was surrounded by like-minded vibrational people, because that's the way it works.
Well, what about society, the country, during down times, during recession, during a depression, where it seems like it builds and builds and builds, and all everybody's talking about is, whoa, it's bad.
It's bad.
Whoa, it's bad. Is it the same concept where it's like, okay, just go focus on yourself?
Yeah, it's bad for them. Yeah, it may be bad for them. It ain't bad for me.
It's hugely opportunistic.
Yeah, if it's bad. I had a friend of mine years ago during one of the other recessions that was disastrous. The world was coming to an end, and he said, I said to him, you're in sand and gravel and concrete. You got 4 other huge businesses that supplies commodities to America. I says, how you handling the recession? And he says, oh, I just chose not to participate. And that's what but it was. I just chose not to participate. So what goes on around you does not have to affect you. You can look at it and go, wow, look at this. This is kind of interesting here. Everybody here is in a bread line. And I mean, during the Depression, 25% of the people were out of work. 75% had jobs. And more wealth was created during the Depression than any time in our history. Because people were going, wait a minute, there's a piece of land here that was selling for $10,000 and now they're giving away for $10? Well, I think I'll buy 2 of those. And then 10 years later, that land they bought for $10 was worth $200,000. I mean, more wealth was created during the Depression than any time in history. And what's occurring around the world when if you just believe that I am going to take it full advantage, this is the best. See, every day is always the best time in the world to do anything. I have friends who are in the automobile business, and they used to if they had a customer the first couple days of the month, they'd say to the customer, "This is the best time to buy a car, because it's the first couple days of the month. We haven't sold the car yet, and my boss wants to make a deal at any price. You're going to get the best deal ever. So if you ever want to buy a car, always come the first couple days, because if you're the first guy to buy a car, they give them away because he wants the first deal on the board to get the ball rolling. It's your lucky day to buy a car today." Now, if you come in the middle of the month, they go, coming in the middle of the month is the best time during the month to buy a car. And the reason is my boss is just dying to hit the number that hits his monthly nut. He needs to get that magic number, and he's doing everything right now to get it as fast as he can, so they give the best deals on a car in the middle of the month because he's trying to hit his number. And he's got to do it no matter what, so he gives the cars away. Now, if you come in the end of the month, he goes, it's your lucky day. If you ever want to buy a car, you come at the end of the month, because the boss has already hit his number of hitting his overhead. Everything now is pure profit. He gives the cars away. He doesn't have to make any profit on them at all. It's just numbers now. It gets some higher allocations next month. So at the end of the month, they just blow the cars out as fast as they can at the cheapest possible prices. All three of those things, by the way, are 100% true. So same thing in a scenario. Whatever the scenario it is, all we have to do is believe and say with vibration, this is a fantastic time to do business. And somebody can say, tell me exactly why. And my answer is, I don't know why. I don't have to know why. I just have to believe that it is, and the evidence will show up in a while. See, whatever you believe, the evidence validates it. That's why Henry Ford said, if you believe you can or if you believe you can't, either way you're right. And his later statement was, because the evidence will validate it. So whatever you believe, you are completely correct, and in a short period of time, you will have all the evidence to back up your belief, to prove you are correct. And that evidence came into your experience because you believed it first. Does this make sense? So that's why I say everything always works out for me. How can you say that? Ask me in a few months. Then we'll have all the evidence. See, it's the future thinking that's the tricky part. Good question. Any other questions, comments, or observations about the tapes? Any clarifications you need on anything in the tapes?
So I have a question. For example, you have a dream, and now you attracted all the people that you wanted for your dream, and here they are all, and they're helping you, and vibrations are wonderful. But then all of a sudden, there is a person that just appears and starts bringing this disbalance to the whole group. Is it a sign for you as the dream of the dream guide, that something is going wrong in your mind right now? Or it's just a sign for you to, okay, I'm moving on, I don't care, maybe this person has a different dream, I just want to avoid this person. So do you really, how you know that this is the person that can teach you something, or this is just a person that has a lot of negative energy and you don't want to mess up with his energy?
The bottom line is everything that comes into your experience, you vibrationally created. You can choose at any point in time whether you want it or not. Sometimes, isn't this true, we want something really, really bad. And we get it. And then we decide we don't want it after all. Does that make sense? It's like, nah, wait a minute, I thought I wanted this. I don't like this. You ever order something on a menu, looks really good, comes, ooh, I don't want this. I should have ordered what you ordered. Well, no problem. So you could be vibrating, you're vibrating something, and something is coming into your experience, and whatever is there, if you don't like it, you can choose, You may not even know why or how you vibrated and created this in your life, but it's there, you created it. You don't have to worry about how, but the fact is you did. And so if you don't like it, just shift it. When you look at things you don't like or don't want, or feel feelings you don't want, you just look at them for a moment, acknowledge them, and then decide, okay, I know I don't want this. What do I want? Every, quote, negative experience that comes into your life, every negative experience that comes into your life primarily is there to help you clarify what you want. If you know what you don't want, you can now clarify what you do want. So whatever comes into your life that you don't want, just acknowledge it and use it as a method of helping you clarify what you do want. So immediately look at what it is you don't like, acknowledge it for a moment, then don't look at it. Now say, okay, I know I don't want this. What is it that I do want? And focus on what you want, what you want, what you want. Turn your back on what you don't want. See, the reason that people don't move off point zero and get what they want was they keep focusing and talking about what they don't want. I need more money, but I don't have any. And I don't know how I'm going to have any. But I want more, but I don't know how I'm going to get it. And I never get any more money. Every time I try to get more money, money doesn't come in. All they're doing is thinking about no money, no money, no money, no money, no money. Instead of focusing on, look, we know you don't have any money, okay, but get off that. Start talking about and thinking about what it is you do want. That changes the focus. So if there's a person that comes into your life or an experience that comes into your life that's negative energy, you get a dynamic group of people working on a project and all of a sudden a new person comes in and you're thinking, oh my God, this is like a disaster. Okay, believe me, you vibrated that in. And then say, what don't I like? Fine. What is it that I want? And focus on that. And a couple things will happen. The person will change. The person will leave. You'll get moved into a different direction. It'll all work out fine. There's too many thousands of potential scenarios that could happen. Because, maybe you're vibrating something that this person is actually giving you. I mean, that's why they're there. You're vibrating something to create it. And again, what appears to be negative generally isn't so. It's there for a reason. So we don't have to look at it. Just look at it as something to clarify what you do want. I just want to end with this. You listen to the CDs once. Believe me, you need to listen to them again and again and again. And as I say in the CDs, listening to information daily, reading books daily, and associating with other people on a daily basis is vitally important so that you continue to focus and build up your positive ball of energy to get to the tipping point. Then it becomes a joy and it becomes unconscious competence and it starts happening automatically. Start small, start applying these things, and you'll absolutely see the results. Little by little by little, but it will start happening.